happy to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
And this is a great way to start off Tuesday because this is such a fun book. And I've had it for, I had it for a week. I've got it before all of you. And it's so fun and funny. And I have to understand how you got into writing because I did a little research. And it said something like, if you weren't an actress, that you would want to be a writer. So here it is. Your dreams are coming true.
Yeah, it's always been a secret ambition, or not so secret now. I really have enjoyed writing, particularly kids' books. It's just been such a meaningful experience. And I've been fortunate enough, because the books have been released overseas first, to meet a lot of the readers. And it's just, there's nothing cuter than, meeting a little person that has, responded to the characters or to the material.
Yeah. So what made you decide to write a kid's book in particular, and what sort of inspired Marge and Charge?
I think if my two best friends had a love child, it would be Marge. One of them is kind of an eternal Peter Pan who's in complete denial about reality, and the other tells these fantastical stories. And that's really who Marge is. She's this anarchic, ebullient babysitter who, comes to live with, comes to babysit Jemima and Jake Button. And the stories are a little bit like A Cat in the Hat meets My Naughty Little Sister, which are stories I love to read to kids. And so I suppose at bedtime, I was running out of material. There's only so many times you can act out Peppa Pig or do impressions of your children's friends' parents. So it felt like, and Marge was a character that just sort of, I did the voice first, and there were just more and more requests to hear tales from Marge. And then equally as a parent, I felt for emerging and reluctant readers, there wasn't many comedic books available for kids. Once they get a little older, they can read Roald Dahl or Jeff Kinley or Francesca Simon. But during that transitional phase, there was a missed opportunity, and I'm very passionate about child literacy, and I wanted to create books that would engage kids in that young age, sort of, from 5 to 11, but wouldn't push them beyond their years socially and emotionally. Because a lot of these books, the kids are talking sassy, or they're doing, things that are maybe a little bit too inappropriate for the age group.
Yeah. So did you go to bed one night and just dream up Marge, mixing your two friends together, and then you just read, or not read, but kind of created a story to tell it to your own kids? Is that kind of how it came about?
No, I just started to talk in this ridiculous voice, and then that made everybody laugh at home, and then I just pretended to be sort of Marge at bedtime, and then. Yeah, the thing about Marge is she takes a list of rules that Mommy gives her, and she breaks all the rules. And kids are very used to being told rules. Obviously, their whole lives revolve around put your seatbelt on, hold a grown-up's hand when you cross the road. So for them, it's very amusing when an adult breaks rules. But she does this in a very positive way, because Marge, of course, encourages their creativity and helps them to, solve any little problem that they have. So she's not mean-spirited, or, she's not going to teach kids any bad lessons.
It's more about having fun. But what's fun about this is Marge is older. She's not like, your 16-year-old babysitter. She's kind of closer to your grandma's age, and that kind of makes it 10 times more fun and interesting.
Yeah, it's a celebration of cross-generational relationships. And I do feel I've always had, I was very close to my grandmother, who was a quadriplegic. And, I spent most of my life, while she was alive, with her. And I love older people. I'm just, and so for me, I love that Marge is older. I sort of have this fantasy that I would make a series with the character, and that Betty White would star.
We need a movie, guys. I'm feeling it. Was that fun to write? Like you said, that cross-generational storyline, because we do see such sweet moments between younger kids and, older adults. So that must have been fun to kind of create that world within and between your characters.
Oh, it really is. I mean, there's something about writing that, acting is obviously an amazing job, and you get to, inhabit the emotional landscape of a character, and you get to, play around, and hide, your identity. And writing is the same experience, except you get to play all the characters, which is, you know, is a dream for me. I've been trying to convince directors for years I can play everyone. So now I get to do it inside my imagination and be all the people, which is super fun.
Yeah, is there Marge in charge on tape where we could hear you like voice these characters? That would be even more fun.
So I've written 3 books so far. The books are, by the way, they're separated into 3 different stories per book, which is a bit like, you know, Netflix binge watching. You can just watch them all or break them up. It's good for the attention spans of smaller kids if you're reading the stories at night and they're not able to read them themselves. But yeah, I've written the 3 books and it's just been a lot of fun.
So how did you go about sitting down and starting to write, and how did you kind of create the stories that you wanted to tell with Marge and Jake and Jemima?
Well, I'm not very good at self-discipline. I'm very good at procrastinating. So I'll think of any excuse. I'll retidy the cupboards in my kitchen, or I'll Google some mystery ailment that I definitely don't have. So for me, deadlines are very incentivizing. So I basically, once I decided that I wanted to share Marge with the world, I met an agent in the UK and sort of ensured, once I'd sent my proposition in and the characters and the world, and it was accepted, that they gave me a strict time to finish by. And then I write wherever I get the opportunity, which I've got 3 kids, so a lot of the time it's in carpool. I have a dictaphone setting on my iPhone. Or it's, whenever I can, in a coffee shop. When I get a window of time, I'll just kind of bash out as much as I can.
Yeah. And so how did you work with the Illustrator to kind of create your characters, to bring them to life like on the page? Because that must be a really fun part of, creating your own book, is kind of seeing them come to life through the illustrations.
Oh, totally. And our illustrator, Eglantine Coumon, is a French girl. She's very young and incredibly talented. This is just one of the most amazing illustrations that you see in the book. And it really is a true collaboration, because I remember when she first drew Marge, she almost looked sinister. She had a woolly hat on and she wore a very somber expression. And I remember thinking, no, that's not how I want Marge to be seen. And then I realized that was creating dramatic tension. I thought, brilliant. Yeah. That's a great idea. And the same with some of my some of the gags that I've wanted to write. I'm thinking, I don't need to write them, because Egg is going to illustrate Marge being stuck in a baby's pram, or Marge landing in a water fountain with her legs in the air, or Marge, making chocolate soup for children. Some of the fun things that Marge get up to. I'm fortunate enough that my illustrator inspires me. And it's a wonderful experience.
Yeah, did you know Marge was going to have like rainbow hair and big heart glasses?
Actually, those were my ideas. No, I always wanted her to have rainbow hair. But yeah, no, I think illustrations are so important, particularly for young kids, because it really helps them to connect with the characters and the world. And once they can imagine the characters and the scenario, then they're able to get immersed in the story and connect to the characters, as I said. So I feel very blessed to have her.
Yeah. And so can you tell us about like the 3 stories that are in this book, and then maybe some future stories that you're kind of churning around in your head?
Okay, so Marge in Charge of this first book. Well, the first story, we establish Marge, who she is. There's this ordinary family, and this extraordinary person steps into that world, and how it, particularly for our lead character, the stories are told through the eyes of Jemima Button, who's 7 years old. And she, and she's who we hear the stories from. And she's the perfect straight girl, because she feels like she has to be a good girl. She has to do what mommy says. And sometimes she misses out on the fun. So Marge really helps her. And as I said, all the little issues that the characters, Jemima and Jake, might experience, little problems that get solved by Marge, they're solved in a grounded way, in a simple, within the family. So there's nothing to overwhelm kids. And then during the second story, we know Marge a little better. There's a birthday party, and she comes along. And of course, she becomes the magician, and she does lots of fun, entertains the kids. And in the last story, she goes to school, Marge at Large, it's school. And then the second book, I don't know what we called it here in the States. It was Marge and the Pirate Baby, but it might be something else here I've forgotten. But then there's Marge and the Great Train Rescue, which is the third book that you'll have. And I'm writing right now Marge and the Secret Tunnel. So I just feel like while there's an appetite and kids are enjoying the stories in the world, and it's encouraging them to read, because as we all know, unlike our upbringing, you know, we played in the garden and we read books, but kids today have access to, you know, techno toys. They have access to iPads and, you know, cell phones, and it's hard to compete. You know, the drudgery of a gray print line when you can have an image. But images, you know, they kind of stop you thinking in a way. And we want to encourage kids to expand their vocabularies and, you know, and it encourages creativity, which leads to innovation, and it helps promote discussions within families. And, you know, reading it also encourages tolerance, because you can see the perspective of somebody else. It's telling you the story. And I'm just so passionate about young readers continuing to love books and words. And I really hope that, you know, the world that we live in of emojis and Twitter feeds and, you know, emoticons, that it doesn't sort of, you know, take the place of loving stories.
There's always a good feeling when you have a book in your hand, right, everybody? Not just screens all the time. So we do have Marge babysits, Marge at the birthday party, and Marge at large in school. Those are the three in this book. And then a fourth one is on the way.
Yes.
Now, in any way, are you yourself a part of Marge, or are you kind of separate? You didn't put any of yourself into her?
I think I do live vicariously through Marge. I have to be a sensible mummy, so some of the things Marge does
Like
are
chocolate soup. No, not for your kids.
exactly, giving the kids 9 slices of birthday cake. I wouldn't be able to do, but I do. You know, I get to sort of pretend to be her when I write. And I wouldn't want to model that kind of impulsive behavior, but ultimately I think she's a good influence on the kids, because she encourages them to let their freak flag fly, and she helps them to tap into their creativity.
Yeah, because we do know you as a comedic actress as well as a dramatic actress. And the first role that comes to mind for me, of course, is Wedding Crashers, and you're so funny in that, right? She deserves a round of applause for that. So it's amazing that you could write books and then find the time to not only be a mom, but continue acting. But what was it about, say, a movie like Wedding Crashers that kind of pushed you more, you know, in the film world and made you maybe think more about what roles you were choosing and what genre you wanted to be in?
Well, actually, I have to credit my husband for Wedding Crashers, because I was really having, even though I've been acting since I was 16, so I'd been at it a long time. I'm from Australia, so in my home country, I was, you know, I was a working actress.
Home and away.
Exactly. But my husband was the one who said, I kept getting rejected from all these movies and becoming more and more downtrodden and disappointed and questioning whether it was time to choose a new vocation, when he said, why are you going for these dramatic roles? You know, why are you, you know, acting out that you're being eaten by a bear? You should be going for comedy roles. You're so funny. And I firstly didn't know that like being funny could be a job. It had never crossed my mind. And secondly, I didn't think of myself as funny, and I just thought of myself as someone who's comfortable tapping into their inner idiot. But the minute I rang my agent and I said, my husband, who's this really funny comedian, thinks that I'm funny, which is already a really embarrassing thing to say aloud.
So I'm funny.
Yeah. Is it possible for you to send me on comedic auditions? And Wedding Crashers was the first one I went for.
So good. And what was that experience like, you know, working with Owen Wilson and Vince Vaughn, and then, of course, you had Rachel McAdams. What was that experience like on set? And there have been rumors that there might be a sequel that we're all kind of waiting for, which would be awesome, because it's
Oh, I got in so much trouble for that.
You did?
Oh, yeah. I can't believe that I'm going to get in trouble again. I also heard that rumor, and I also repeated it on television.
Hey, it's a rumor spread.
I am more like Marge than I like to let on. No, being on set was my first big. Oh no, I'd shot Scooby-Doo in Australia, so I had already had kind of the Hollywood experience of big trailers and big budget studio movies, which is very decadent. You know, where you have 4 days to shoot a scene that in an independent movie or television show you'd bash through in half an hour, an hour. And so yeah, Wedding Crashers. I remember feeling very intimidated, but then I instantly connected with Vince, and because my character got to beat him up the whole time, and, you know, I play this bipolar nymphomaniac. I just couldn't let myself, once I was in character, I had to, sort of pretend to fake it till you make it.
That's
yeah.
fun. And then, of course, you've been in movies like Great Gatsby and Now You See Me and more dramatic roles. What about those movies kind of made you think, oh, I like drama too, so I want to kind of live in between these two worlds of comedy and drama? And I guess that's film.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really differentiate between the genres because from an acting perspective, you're approaching the characters the same way. You're connecting with the humanity of the role and the character. You're keeping it grounded in reality. Something's only funny if it feels real, in my opinion. Once it turns into a parody of something, you can find it. I feel it can feel pushed. So I sort of approach, acting wise, my technique is the same for whatever the genre. And working on a drama is really fun because everybody takes it really seriously. And everybody talks about, their character as if it's really happening to them. Everyone's very method. Like, I just feel that in this moment I would be, and you're like, oh, okay, everybody, okay, we really, and so it's definitely, and people journal how their character is feeling and how their character, it's all very intense, which I also enjoy just because, there's a part of me that finds it, just so ridiculous because we're just playing dress ups, but equally I get immersed in it too.
Yeah. I'm sure Leonardo DiCaprio really goes in for his craft, like on The Great Gatsby, I can imagine.
No, Leo was very prepared. He read a different version of Gatsby, and he's an incredible performer. I was so impressed with him, from everything from his dialect to the way he inhabited that role. I think he's, obviously very talented.
You've worked with many talented people. And I have to give you some kudos because you got to kiss Wonder Woman Gal Gadot because you guys were in Keeping Up with the Joneses before Wonder Woman became this smash hit.
Yeah, I always smooch superheroes.
Yeah. That's why she's a superhero. We all know that.
No, it was really funny because I'm obviously, I'm Hobbit-sized and she's James Bond goddess size. So I really needed a ladder to climb up to smooch her. No, she's actually a friend of mine, so we were able to, talk about how we were going to do it, and it was fun. I loved that movie. Working with Greg. Oh.
So good.
I feel like, I've been with my husband for, at least 16 years and I've got 3 kids. So that movie to me felt like that was made for people like me. I mean, I really, really enjoyed it. And I wish there were more movies about, about couples that have been together for a long time.
Yeah, me too. Sequels, guys, they're the thing. Let's keep going with the Joneses. So what's next for you? What kind of roles are coming up? Or what's a role that you would, are you dying to be in a superhero movie or something like that? Or is that something that is not really of interest?
Tiny Woman instead of Wonder Woman.
Yes.
Tiny and hairy, she'll protect you. No, I would love to have the opportunity to, play different characters. I love acting. I did a movie called Tag, which is about a group of adult men who are still playing the children's game of tag and taking it too seriously, which is quite funny. It has Ed Helms and Jeremy Renner and John Hamm again from Keeping Up with the Joneses.
Take it away from John.
It's in my contract, actually, that all my movies contain John Hamm. And so I'm excited to see how that turns out. And right now I'm just reading scripts. And as I said, I'm working actually on my 4th book for the UK. So the books came out maybe a year and a half ago in England. And all 3 of them have come out. This is just the first one. So I'm now writing the 4th one, which I'm really... And they came out in Australia and Israel. And I think they came out in Turkey and a bunch of different... countries. So it's been a total thrill.
And then you're also returning to TV, right? Are you going to be in Arrested Development?
I'm shooting. I don't know if this is top secret. I don't want to get in trouble, people. I mean, I'm already in trouble. I can feel
some
it.
Sort of social media post.
Yes, I am shooting Arrested Development. I'm bringing Rebel back. Yeah.
Is it cool to be on TV? The world right now for TV is huge and so many great characters. So is it nice to find that balance between, great TV roles as well as film roles?
Oh yeah, I've never been a snob when it comes to TV. I've always felt like, some of the greatest. The thing about a movie is, when it's over, if you've really enjoyed the characters, you feel like you can't see them again. Whereas you get connected to something on TV, and you just can stay. It's like a long-standing love affair. It's amazing. So yeah, I'm always looking for something that would keep me home. At the moment, our base is in LA, and I would love to work the hours of TV, but it's just, you want to find the right thing because ultimately it's a character. What I love about acting in film is that you play someone new all the time. So you're constantly researching, exploring, and getting to learn a whole new skill set for the human being that you're playing. Whereas, it would be somebody that I'm playing, for a really long period of time. So it would have to be a character that I really, really, really loved and connected with.
Yeah, you could be on a TV show for like 10 years. But I do want to go to audience Q&A. So who has some questions? Start it off.
Hi.
Over here.
Oh, hi.
So this sounds like a really good book to read and really inspiring. So I was wondering what inspired you and how you got into writing.
Well, I think I grew up in a family who everybody loves books. Even my mom was obsessed with reading, and acting is storytelling too. So it just felt like a natural. I actually wrote 2 teen fiction books when I was 18. Please don't anyone buy them or Google them. They're called. One was called Seduced by Fame, and the other was called Bewitched. They're probably available for 30 cents on eBay next to David Hasselhoff. How to Cook Meat. Yeah, Seduced by Fame, exactly. So I've always written, I've always journaled, and and it's just, I think, there's a misconception that if you write, you're very isolated. But at least for me, during this process, I had such a wonderful dialogue with my editor, and she becomes, they become your best friend. You speak to them the whole time, and so it's not as lonely as one might imagine.
Great question. Who's next? Here we go. Traffic over there.
Yeah. Hi. Who are some of your favorite authors?
Oh my gosh. Well, I love Jane Austen, like everyone. I've always, my first literary crush was on Winnie the Pooh. I just think he's such a lovable idiot, and he's so funny. Even now, when I read those stories to my kids, and I'm not a snob about books. I'm that one person at the airport that will just pick up anything and read it and kind of take something away, even if from it, whether it's a thriller, whether it's a crime drama, one of those crime books, or everything from, I'll read anything.
Yeah, that's the way to be. I think we have time for one more.
Hi. So, what is your thought process when it comes to writing scenarios for Marge? And since you have 3 stories and are currently writing others.
Well, I sort of have a structure that I stick to, which is Marge is given a set of rules by Mummy, and Marge subsequently breaks those rules. And then Mummy and Daddy return, and everything's all right. And during the middle, there's obviously a lot of mayhem and adventure, hijinks and humor. So once I sort of had the structure of the story in place, then I just go wherever a comedy character is funniest. So the straighter the world around, it's like the straight man in comedy. You need a straight world, and then you dump the funny character, fish out of water style. And then it becomes instantly amusing. So for me, it's taking scenarios, and because I'm fortunate enough to live with 3 kids and all their friends, and I've so many nieces, and I'm around tiny people all the time. I just plagiarize. I just steal funny sayings and incidents and things that I see around me that I find amusing. I think, this is what kids will respond to, because these books are not for 40-year-olds. They're for children. And so if my editor says, for example, I think we should cut this, I say, I'm sorry, the kids like it. I'm not listening to you. I'm probably, I do what I think, and I test out all the material on the tiny people around me, and I let them guide the stories.
Well, guys, these stories are so funny, and you did such a wonderful job. I can't wait for people to read it here in the States, because, like you said, it's already out elsewhere. But you can pick it up now, right? Is it in stores, bookstores?
Yes, it is. Yay. I believe it is. I think so.
Well, thank you so much for being here, Isla. We've loved having you. And thank you all for being here. Yeah.